In the vast darkness between galaxies, where ancient civilizations had learned to speak in whispers, there existed a truth that no council, no senate, no confederation of worlds dared to acknowledge aloud. Humanity was different. The observation deck of the Talvares stretched across 300 meters of pristine crystal, offering an unobstructed view of the blue-green marble suspended in the void. Admiral Krixthallen pressed 6 of his 12 fingertips against the cool surface, watching the planet rotate with deceptive serenity. Earth, the third world from an unremarkable yellow star in a galaxy's outer spiral arm. It looked so ordinary. The preliminary scans are complete. Admiral, the voice belonged to Fleet Coordinator Nex Gorvain, whose chitinous exoskeleton reflected the sterile lighting of the command bridge. Population, 8.7 billion. Technology level barely past nuclear fission. No faster than light capability. No energy shields. No plasma weaponry. Krixthallen's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture that among his people indicated deep contemplation. The hegemony had conquered 47 worlds in the past 2 centuries. Each had fallen within cycles, their defenders overwhelmed by superior numbers, superior technology, superior coordination. This should be no different. Military assessment? Fragmented. Over 200 separate nation-states, many in active conflict with each other, primitive kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, some crude missile systems. Nex Gorvain's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among the Zarth. Their largest military force possesses fewer than 2 million active personnel. We have brought 12 billion soldiers across 46 battle fleets. 12 billion. The number should have been reassuring. It represented the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Representatives from 8 species, united under the hegemony's banner, armed with technology that could crack planets and burn stars. They had come here not for conquest. Earth offered nothing of strategic value but for extermination, because the humans had made a mistake. 6 months ago, the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Val-Inex had detected an impossible signal. A transmission originating from this backwater system, somehow piercing the quantum static that made faster-than-light communication possible. The message had been brief, garbled, almost certainly accidental. But it had been received by 43 different worlds simultaneously. In the history of galactic civilization, no species had achieved quantum tunneling communication without first mastering basic energy manipulation. The humans had somehow done both simultaneously, while still fighting each other with metal projectiles and burning fossil fuels. "Sir," Nex Gorvain waited for orders, his secondary arms adjusting the holographic displays that showed Earth's major population centers. "Shall we begin with the orbital bombardment? Standard protocol suggests targeting military installations first, then infrastructure, then—" "No." Krixthallen turned from the observation window, his uniform bearing the silver insignia of the Hegemony High Command. "We follow the Vardanis protocols. Complete ecosystem sterilization. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence that this species ever existed." The bridge fell silent except for the barely audible hum of the ship's quantum engines. Even among the Hegemony's most hardened commanders, the Vardanis protocols were spoken of in whispers. They had been used only 3 times in recorded history, against species whose potential threat to galactic stability far outweighed any moral considerations. The last time had been against the Kremenethus, whose psychic abilities had allowed them to control minds across star systems. Before that, the Yithmadran, whose quantum manipulation technology had threatened the fundamental structure of spacetime. And before that, Krixthallen preferred not to think about the Vorvax Selith. "Admiral," another voice interrupted his thoughts. Science Coordinator Will Corvan approached with data tablets clutched in her 4-fingered hands. "I must protest this course of action. The humans may be technologically primitive, but our xenobiological surveys indicate—" "I am aware of the surveys, Coordinator." "Then you know that their neural complexity exceeds galactic averages by 37%. Their capacity for abstract reasoning, creative problem-solving, adaptive learning, these metrics suggest enormous potential for technological advancement. With proper guidance, they could become valuable members of the galactic community." Krixthallen's largest eye fixed on the Velkaran scientist. Yulkarvan's species had contributed much to the hegemony's understanding of biological systems, but their perspective was often naive. Tell me, Coordinator, in your surveys did you study their history? Of course. Fascinating species. They evolved from persistence hunters on a high-gravity death world. Their physiology shows remarkable adaptations to their wars. Coordinator, did you study their wars? Yulkarvan's feathered crest flattened slightly, a sign of uncertainty among her people. Yes, Admiral. They have engaged in numerous conflicts throughout their recorded history. But this is common among developing species. The hegemony itself emerged in the past century alone, Crixtholan interrupted. The humans have fought 2 global conflicts. The second killed 60 million of their own kind. They developed weapons capable of destroying entire cities and used them. They poisoned their own atmosphere, depleted their resources, drove countless species to extinction. And yet, he gestured toward the peaceful blue world beyond the crystal. They rebuilt. Every time. Stronger. Faster. More dangerous. The bridge's tactical displays showed Earth's military installations as red dots scattered across the continents. Thousands of them, nuclear silos hidden beneath ice caps and deserts. Submarine fleets, prowling their ocean depths. Orbital monitoring stations that, primitive as they were, had somehow detected the hegemony fleet's approach 3 days ago. The humans knew they were coming, and they were preparing. Sir, Fleet Coordinator Corvan's voice carried a note of urgency. We're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet's surface. Encrypted communications between military installations. Radio broadcasts to civilian populations. And he paused, manipulating the holographic interface to isolate a specific signal. A message directed toward our fleet. On all frequencies. Crixtholan felt something he had not experienced in 3 decades of military service. A cold sensation in his central nervous system that his people called Vrextholan. The closest human translation would be Play it? The bridge speakers crackled with static, then resolved into a clear audio transmission. The voice was distinctly human, deeper and rougher than the standard galactic languages, with an accent that spoke of authority earned through conflict. To the unknown vessels currently approaching Earth. This is General David Kane, Commander of United Earth Defense. We know you're out there. We know you're not here to talk. And we know you think this is going to be easy. A pause. In the background, faint sounds could be heard. Machinery, voices, the distant rumble of what might have been aircraft. You're wrong. For 75 years, humanity has known this day would come. Since the moment we looked up at the stars and realized we weren't alone, we've been preparing. You see, we humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Well, we've had 3/4 of a century to prepare for the worst possible scenario. You think you have superior numbers? You think your technology gives you an advantage? Let me tell you something about humans. We've been killing each other with sticks and stones for 10,000 years, and we've gotten very, very good at it. The only thing that's changed is the scale. Crixtholan watched his officers exchange glances. Several species represented on the bridge had never heard humans speak before. Their voices carried weight, conviction, an undertone of barely contained violence that seemed to resonate in the ship's metal hull. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to come down here expecting to find scattered, frightened primitives armed with crude weapons. Instead, you're going to find something else entirely. Something your intelligence reports didn't prepare you for. Something your advanced civilizations have probably never encountered. You're going to find humans who have nothing left to lose. The transmission cut to static, then silence. For long moments, no one on the bridge spoke. Finally, Yulkarvan cleared her throat. A sound like wind through crystalline formations. Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider the first contact protocols. If the humans are willing to negotiate, they're not. Crixtholan moved to the central command station, where holographic displays showed the positions of all 46 hegemony fleets. Billions of soldiers, thousands of starships, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. Do you know why the Hegemony Council authorized the Verdanis protocols for this mission, Coordinator? Because of the quantum communications signal. No. Because of what our deep space reconnaissance discovered on their internet. Every officer on the bridge turned toward the admiral. The human global information network had been monitored for months, its contents analyzed by the hegemony's most advanced artificial intelligence systems. They call it science fiction, coordinator, hadr, stories, entertainment, theoretical scenarios for how contact with alien species might unfold. Crixthalin's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. You know what humanity's predominant theory is regarding first contact? Silence. War. In 93% of their fictional scenarios, first contact with alien species results in interstellar war. And in 67% of those scenarios, he paused, allowing the implications to settle over his officers like a toxic cloud. Humanity wins. The tactical display chimed softly, indicating new data from the reconnaissance drones. Earth's major cities were visible in real time, millions of lights scattered across the dark side of the planet. But something was different now. The patterns had changed. Sir, Nex Gorvan's voice was barely above a whisper. The civilian populations, they're not evacuating. Crixthalin studied the data streams. Every military doctrine in galactic history dictated that threatened populations would flee to designated safe zones. Underground shelters, remote locations away from strategic targets. It was the universal response to approaching annihilation. The humans were doing the opposite. In every major city, civilian populations were moving toward military installations. Factories that had been producing consumer goods were rapidly retooling for weapons manufacturing. Educational institutions were being converted into strategic command centers. Even children, their young, were being organized into communication networks and supply chains. They're not treating this as an invasion, Il Corvan said, her voice filled with academic fascination. They're treating it as the end of the world, Crixthalin finished. And they're responding accordingly. The admiral had studied the military history of dozens of species. He had seen how civilizations reacted to overwhelming force. Some surrendered immediately. Others fought with honor until defeat became inevitable. A few chose mutual destruction rather than submission. But this was something else entirely. The humans weren't preparing for invasion. They weren't preparing for occupation. They weren't even preparing for honorable defeat. They were preparing to take as many enemies with them as possible. Fleet coordinator, Crixthalin's voice cut through the bridge's tension like a plasma blade. Signal all battle groups. Advance to Phase 1 positions. Begin the sterilization protocol immediately. Sir, standard procedure requires a formal declaration of immediately. Nex Gorvan's mandibles clicked nervously, but he began inputting commands into the tactical interface. Around the bridge, officers moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for what should have been a routine planetary sterilization. But as the hegemony fleets moved into attack formation, as 46 massive starships positioned themselves around Earth's orbital plane, as 12 billion soldiers prepared for what military doctrine promised would be a swift and decisive victory, Admiral Crixthalin found himself thinking about the human transmission, about the confidence in that voice, about the absolute certainty that this would not end the way every other conquest had ended. You're going to find humans who have nothing left to lose. He had conquered 47 worlds. He had seen species fight with courage, with desperation, with everything they possessed. But he had never faced a species that seemed to welcome the fight. Outside the observation deck, Earth continued its slow rotation, blue and green and beautiful and utterly deceptive. Somewhere on that world's surface, 8 billion humans were looking up at the stars and seeing their own extinction approaching, and they were smiling. The tactical display chimed again. New signals were emerging from Earth's surface, thousands of them, originating from every continent simultaneously. The encryption was primitive by galactic standards, but the pattern recognition software identified them immediately. Military coordination signals, all of them. Every major military force on the planet, including nations that had been at war with each other for decades, was now operating under unified command protocols. Humanity had done something that no other species in galactic history had accomplished when faced with extinction. They had instantly, completely, and voluntarily united. Admiral Yul Corvan's voice carried a note of genuine fear. Perhaps we should. The bridge lights suddenly shifted to red, and every display screen flashed with an urgent priority signal. Admiral Krixthalin felt his blood vessels constrict as he read the message that every hegemony commander dreaded seeing. Emergency Protocol Omega, incoming transmission from Supreme Council. All operations cease immediately, await further instructions. For the first time in 3 decades of military service, Admiral Krixthalin realized that he might have made a critical error in judgment. And somewhere 8 light minutes away, on a small blue world that had just united its entire species for war, the humans were still preparing for something that they had been dreaming about, writing about, and planning for their entire recorded history. First contact. The emergency transmission from Supreme Council arrived encoded with quantum encryption keys that hadn't been used since the Kralonethys crisis. Admiral Krixthalin accepted the communication in his private quarters, surrounded by the honor shields of 47 conquered worlds. Soon he suspected that collection would be incomplete. The holographic projection that materialized before him stood nearly 3 meters tall, the imposing form of Supreme Chancellor Vorth Comethus, whose species had ruled the galactic core for over a millennium. When the Chancellor spoke, reality itself seemed to bend around his words. "Admiral," the voice carried harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond the merely physical. "You will immediately withdraw all fleets to minimum safe distance and await further orders." Krixthalin's 4 eyes focused with military precision. "Supreme Chancellor, our mission parameters clearly stated. Your mission parameters have changed." The projection gestured, and holographic displays showed real-time data from across the galaxy. 17 hours ago, our monitoring stations detected quantum fluctuations originating from the human homeworld. Not communications, Admiral, weapon signatures. The tactical data that materialized around the Chancellor's image defied every law of physics that galactic civilization understood. Energy readings that suggested focused antimatter reactions, gravitational anomalies consistent with artificial black hole generation, and underneath it all a pattern of quantum manipulation that registered as mathematically impossible. The humans appear to have developed technologies that our science indicates should require several thousand years of advanced research. They have done so in secret, while maintaining the facade of a primitive civilization, and the Chancellor's pause carried the weight of civilizations. They have been broadcasting false technological signatures to disguise their true capabilities. Krixthalin felt his exoskeleton grow cold. In galactic military doctrine, there was only one species classification for civilizations that developed advanced weapons while projecting technological primitivism: predators. Supreme Chancellor, our intelligence networks show no evidence of. Your intelligence networks have been compromised. The projection shifted, displaying communication intercepts from across hegemony space. For the past 6 months, every major research installation, every military command center, every strategic planning facility in hegemony territory has been experiencing minor system anomalies, data corruption, communication delays, navigation errors. The implications crashed over Krixthalin like a collapsing star. They've been inside our networks for at least 2 years. Based on forensic analysis, the humans have had complete access to our military capabilities, our fleet positions, our strategic planning, and our internal communications. They know everything, Admiral, and they have been preparing. The holographic displays showed Earth again, but now with overlay data that revealed the true scope of human preparation. Underground facilities that thermal imaging had somehow missed. Military installations disguised as civilian infrastructure, and most disturbing of all, population centers that showed clear signs of advanced defensive technologies. The quantum communications signal that triggered this mission was not accidental. The Chancellor continued. It was a deliberate provocation. The humans wanted us to come. They have been waiting for us. Krixthalin's military mind raced through the tactical implications. If humanity possessed advanced technology, if they had infiltrated hegemony networks, if they had been preparing for this conflict for years, Supreme Chancellor, are you ordering a full retreat? The projection's silence stretched for long moments, an eternity in the context of interstellar warfare. When the Chancellor finally spoke, his words carried the weight of galactic destiny. Admiral, I am about to share with you intelligence that has been classified at the highest levels for over 3,000 years. Information that only the Supreme Council and the ancient archives possess. The holographic environment shifted, displaying star charts that showed the galactic core and the spiral arms beyond. Ancient data, predating even the hegemony's formation. Long ago, before the great civilizations arose, there existed a species that conquered half the galaxy. They possessed technology beyond our current understanding. They could manipulate matter at the quantum level, create artificial realities, travel instantaneously across galactic distances. They were another pause, heavy with historical significance. They were called the architects, and according to the deepest archives, according to legends that we have dismissed as mythology, they seeded certain worlds with genetic patterns designed to eventually recreate their capabilities. Crixthalin's combat instincts, honed through decades of warfare, suddenly screamed danger alerts throughout his consciousness. You believe Earth is one of these worlds. I believe Earth is the world, Admiral. The primary seeding site. The world where the architects intended their successors to arise. The tactical implications were staggering. If humans possessed even a fraction of the architect's capabilities, if they were the intended inheritors of technology that had once conquered half the galaxy, Supreme Chancellor, what are your orders? You are to establish communication with human leadership immediately. Full diplomatic protocols. You are to negotiate whatever terms are necessary to prevent active hostilities. Negotiate? Crixthalin's military training rebelled against the concept. Sir, we have 12 billion soldiers, 46 battle fleets, enough firepower to die gloriously while accomplishing nothing. The Chancellor's projection leaned forward, and for the first time in Crixthalin's experience, he heard something like fear in that ancient voice. Admiral, our deepest strategic simulations suggest that if humans possess even basic architect analogy, your entire force would be destroyed within minutes of engaging. The communication channel closed, leaving Crixthalin alone with the weight of this revelation. Minutes. 2 light hours away from the hegemony fleet, in a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. General David Kane studied displays that showed every alien vessel in perfect detail. The command center around him hummed with activity that would have seemed impossible to any observer familiar with humanity's supposed technological level. General, the voice belonged to Dr. Amanda Foster, whose neural interface allowed her to communicate directly with Earth's quantum defense network. They're pulling back to minimum engagement distance. Passive scanning indicates their fleet command has received new orders. Kane nodded, his weathered features showing no emotion. At 63, he had spent his entire adult life preparing for this moment. The moment when humanity would finally meet their neighbors and disappoint them terribly. Dr. Foster, what's the status on the quantum tunneling arrays? Fully operational across all 6 continents. We can establish point-to-point matter transfer anywhere in the solar system with 96% accuracy. Temporal manipulation fields? Standing by. Current calculations suggest we can slow their perception of time by a factor of 12,000 while maintaining normal operational tempo for our forces. Gravitational weapons. The Luna mass driver is locked onto their flagship. We can generate localized black holes with targeted precision anywhere within their formation. Kane studied the tactical displays with satisfaction that had been 40 years in the making, ever since the first radio signals from space had been detected, ever since humanity realized they were not alone. The greatest minds of every nation had worked together on a single project, making sure that when the neighbors finally came calling, they would regret it. Sir, another voice interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson Torres approached with data tablets containing communication intercepts. We're receiving multiple transmissions from the alien fleet. They're requesting formal diplomatic contact. Diplomatic contact. Kane's laugh contained no humor. After showing up with enough firepower to glass the planet, how thoughtful of them. Sir, what are your orders? Kane looked around the command center that represented humanity's greatest achievement. Not the technology, though reverse engineering crashed alien hardware had given them capabilities beyond their wildest dreams. Not the weapons, though they had created tools that could crack moons and boil atmospheres. No, humanity's greatest achievement was unity. For the first time in their species' history, Every human being on Earth was working toward the same goal. Every nation, every ideology, every petty territorial dispute had been set aside for this moment. 8 billion human beings with a single purpose: survival. Lieutenant Colonel, open a communication channel to their flagship. Let's have that diplomatic chat. Admiral Kriegstalen received the response from Earth's surface with a mixture of relief and apprehension. The humans were willing to talk. That was encouraging. The fact that their communication had somehow bypassed all of his ship's security protocols and appeared directly on his personal displays was less encouraging. The holographic interface activated, and Kriegstalen found himself face to face with his first human. The creature was shorter than most galactic species, but possessed a density of muscle and bone that spoke of evolution on a high-gravity world. Its skin was scarred, weathered by decades of exposure to harsh environments. But its eyes, Kriegstalen had looked into the eyes of beings from 47 worlds. He had seen fear, rage, desperation, madness, but he had never seen anything like what he observed in this human's gaze. Anticipation. "I am Admiral Kriegstalen of the Galactic Hegemony," he began, following formal diplomatic protocols. "I speak with the authority of 46 unified worlds." "I'm General David Kane," the human interrupted. "And I speak for 8 billion humans who are about to teach you why Death World isn't just a classification, it's a warning." The directness was jarring. Most species approached first contact with ceremony, with ritual, with careful politeness designed to avoid misunderstandings that might lead to conflict. This human spoke like he was discussing the weather. "General Kane, I must inform you that this situation has been reassessed by our leadership. We are prepared to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence." "No, you're not." The human's smile was predatory. "You're prepared to discuss terms for your survival. There's a difference." Kriegstalen felt his combat instincts activate. "General, I should point out that we possess significant military advantages. Our fleet consists of 46 ships carrying 12 billion soldiers armed with plasma weapons, antimatter warheads, and quantum disruptors." The human's interruption was casual, conversational. "Your flagship is the Talvaresh, a Zarthik heavy cruiser with regenerative armor and a crew of 47,000. Your personal cabin is on Deck 17, Section C, and you have 4 honor shields from your previous conquests mounted on your wall." The Admiral's blood turned to ice. That information was classified beyond the highest security levels. No one outside the hegemony command structure should have access to. "Oh, an Admiral?" The human's smile widened. "We're currently inside every computer system in your fleet. We've been there for 6 hours. Your security is quaint." Kriegstalen's hands moved toward the emergency protocols, but stopped when he realized the implications. If the humans had compromised their systems, if they possessed information about hegemony military capabilities, if they had somehow infiltrated. "What do you want?" "That's better. Much more direct." "I like that." The human leaned back in his chair, a gesture that somehow managed to be both relaxed and threatening. "Here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You're going to withdraw your fleets to beyond the edge of our solar system. You're going to return to your Hegemony Council and inform them that Earth is under human protection. And you're going to recommend that future contact follow proper diplomatic channels. And if we refuse?" The human's expression didn't change, but something in the background of the transmission caught Kriegstalen's attention. Other humans moving with military precision, displays showing weapon systems that shouldn't exist, technology that violated known physical laws. "Admiral, may I share something with you, a human perspective on warfare?" Despite every tactical instinct, Kriegstalen found himself curious about this species' military philosophy. "Most species," the human continued, "develop warfare as an extension of hunting. You identify a target, you overwhelm it with superior force, you achieve victory. It's clean, efficient, predictable." The human stood and moved to what appeared to be a tactical display showing the positions of all hegemony fleets in real time. "Humans are different. We didn't develop warfare from hunting. We developed it from survival. For us, war isn't about overwhelming the enemy. It's about making the enemy wish they had never found us." The display behind the human shifted, showing energy readings from across Earth's surface. massive installations hidden beneath ice caps, orbital platforms that had somehow remained invisible to hegemony sensors, weapons systems that generated readings beyond the scale of known physics. You see, Admiral, when a species evolves on a world where everything is trying to kill you, you learn to think differently about conflict. You don't just prepare to win, you prepare to make winning so costly for your enemy that they'll surrender rather than continue fighting. Crixthalan studied the data streaming across his own displays. The humans weren't just showing their weapons, they were revealing the scope of their preparation. Facilities on every continent. Defensive installations that could engage targets across interstellar distances. Technology that suggested, "How long?" His voice came out as barely a whisper. "How long have you been preparing for this?" Since the first radio signal from space reached Earth, 75 years of every human genius, every scientific breakthrough, every military innovation focused on a single question. What happens when something comes to Earth that wants to hurt us? The human gestured toward the tactical displays. The answer, Admiral, is that they discover why Earth is classified as a death world. Not because of our environment, because of us. The transmission shifted, displaying images from across Earth's surface. Cities where millions of humans worked together with mechanical precision. Factories producing technologies that shouldn't exist. Children learning mathematics and physics that challenged galactic understanding. 8 billion humans, Admiral. All united for the first time in our species' history. All working toward the same goal. All asking the same question. The human's smile was brilliant and terrifying. What else is out there? Crixthalan realized with growing horror that humanity's first contact scenario wasn't about defense. It wasn't about survival. It wasn't even about victory. It was about expansion. The humans weren't trying to protect their world from alien invasion. They were using alien invasion as an excuse to take their war to the stars. General, Crixthalan's voice carried the weight of dawning comprehension. What exactly are you proposing? Oh, it's quite simple, Admiral. The human turned toward the camera, and for the first time, Crixthalan saw something in those eyes that made him understand why his Supreme Chancellor had ordered diplomatic contact. Hunger. We're going to accept your hegemony's invitation to join galactic civilization. We're going to become productive members of the interstellar community. We're going to contribute our unique perspectives and capabilities to the greater good of all species. The human paused, allowing the implications to settle. And in return, you're going to show us exactly how this galaxy works. You're going to introduce us to your neighbors. You're going to share your star charts, your technologies, your trade routes, your diplomatic protocols. Another pause. Longer this time. All of them. Admiral Crixthalan suddenly understood why the ancient archives contained such dire warnings about the architects. Why entire species had fled to distant galaxies rather than face them. Why the greatest civilizations in galactic history had preferred mutual extinction to conquest. It wasn't about technology. It wasn't about superior numbers or advanced weapons. It was about the difference between species that fought to defend what they had and species that fought to take everything that existed. The humans belonged to the second category, and they had just announced their intention to meet the neighbors. Time moved differently in the quantum deep. Between the moment of first contact and the dawn of what historians would later call the human expansion, exactly 47 minutes passed in standard galactic time. For the species of the hegemony, it felt like watching their universe end in slow motion. Admiral Crixthalan stood in the center of his command bridge, surrounded by displays showing the impossible. In the 17 minutes since General Kane's transmission had ended, every hegemony ship in the fleet had experienced what their chief engineers were calling cascade system integration. The humans hadn't hacked their computers. They had improved them. Sir, Fleet Coordinator Nex Scorvan's voice carried the hollow tone of someone whose fundamental understanding of reality had been shattered. Our tactical systems are now operating at efficiency levels 2,000% beyond previous parameters. Our engines are producing thrust ratios that violate the theoretical limits of our fuel systems, and our communications array. He gestured helplessly at the holographic displays. We can now transmit instantaneous messages across galactic distances with perfect clarity. Crixthalan studied the data streams flowing across his screens. Every system on every ship had been seamlessly upgraded with technology that represented centuries of advancement beyond hegemony capabilities. The humans had done this casually, as a gesture of goodwill during diplomatic negotiations. Science coordinator, he addressed Yil Korvan, whose feathered crest had remained flat with terror for the past 20 minutes. Analysis? Admiral, the humans have just demonstrated technical capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections by orders of magnitude we don't have terms for. Her voice carried the precision of academic disciplines struggling to process information that challenged every known law of physics. They've essentially given us a complete technological upgrade as a diplomatic gift. Why? The question came from Deep Navigator Kelt Zareth, whose species had developed interstellar travel before the human ancestors had discovered fire. What possible strategic advantage do they gain by improving our capabilities? The answer came not from any of the hegemony officers, but from the communication system that had suddenly become capable of real-time translation across all known galactic languages. Because, Navigator, General Kane's voice emerged from speakers with perfect acoustic clarity, we don't see you as enemies. We see you as students. Every being on the bridge turned toward the central display where the human's image appeared with resolution that made him seem physically present in the room. I hope you don't mind the intrusion, Admiral. Your new communication systems are quite impressive. We thought you might appreciate a demonstration. Crixthalen felt his 4 eyes blink in sequence. The involuntary gesture his species made when confronting something beyond their understanding. General Kane, how are you? Accessing your systems from 8 light minutes away through quantum tunneling communication arrays that we built in our spare time. Oh, that's simple enough. We reverse-engineered the principles from some crashed debris we found in our desert about 60 years ago. Fascinating technology, very elegant. We've made some improvements. The casual tone was somehow more disturbing than any threat could have been. The humans spoke about violating the fundamental laws of physics the way other species discussed weather patterns. Admiral, another voice joined the transmission. Dr. Foster, whose neural interface with Earth's defense network made her effectively omniscient within human space. We're receiving multiple priority transmissions from your Supreme Council. It seems our diplomatic overtures to the hegemony have created some excitement in the galactic core. The holographic display shifted, showing real-time images from across hegemony space. On 46 different worlds, emergency sessions of government were being convened. Military forces were being mobilized, and on 3 worlds, entire populations were being evacuated to emergency shelters. They're afraid, Crixthalen realized. Of course they are, General Kane replied. We would be too, in their position. First contact with a species that possesses unknown capabilities is always terrifying. But fear is just information, Admiral. The question is what you do with that information. The display showed Earth again, but now with overlay data that revealed the true scope of human civilization. Cities that extended deep underground. Orbital installations that had somehow remained invisible to every sensor system in the galaxy. Manufacturing complexes that produced technologies beyond hegemony understanding. And population centers, where 8 billion humans worked together with coordination that defied every xenosociological model. Admiral, Dr. Foster's voice carried the authority of someone who could observe a dozen star systems simultaneously. Your Supreme Council is requesting immediate conference. They're concerned about the implications of human integration into galactic civilization. What implications? Crixthalen asked, though part of him already understood. The economic ones, General Kane replied. You see, Admiral, the hegemony's entire civilization is based on certain assumptions about technological development, resource allocation, and strategic balance between species. You've created a very stable, very predictable galactic order. The human paused, allowing his words to carry their full weight. We're about to destabilize that order in ways you haven't considered. New data streams appeared on the displays, projections showing Earth's industrial capacity, resource extraction capabilities, and technological development rate. The numbers were staggering. In the past 75 years, humanity has increased its energy production by a factor of 14,000. We've developed manufacturing processes that can convert any atomic matter into any other atomic matter. We've created transportation systems that ignore the traditional limitations of space and time. And we've done all of this while maintaining the facade of a primitive civilization. The implications crashed over the bridge officers like a wave of liquid metal. If humans possessed matter conversion technology, if they could manipulate energy at those scales, if they had been concealing this level of development, "You're going to crash our economy," Nex Gorvan said, his mandibles clicking with the despair of sudden understanding. "Oh yes." General Kane's smile was brilliant. "Completely. Within 6 months of formal contact, every established trade route, every resource monopoly, every technological advantage that maintains the current balance of power will become obsolete." The human gestured toward displays showing galactic trade networks, vast commercial systems that had developed over millennia to exploit the different capabilities and limitations of various species. "Of course, we'll be happy to help you adapt to the new paradigm. Think of it as a learning opportunity." Science Coordinator Yul Korvan found her voice first. "What do you want from us?" "Information," Dr. Foster replied. "Star charts showing the location of every inhabited system, complete databases of all known species, their capabilities, their cultures, their histories, diplomatic protocols for initiating contact with civilizations beyond hegemony space." "You want to meet everyone," Krixthalan said. "Eventually. But first, we want to understand how this galaxy works, how species interact, how conflicts are resolved, how trade is conducted, how—" General Kane's pause was pregnant with implications. "How wars are fought." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of newly improved systems that operated beyond their original design parameters. Finally, Deep Navigator Kelt Sareth spoke the question that everyone was thinking. "What happens if we refuse to provide this information?" The response came not from the humans but from Admiral Krixthalan's own tactical systems. New data appeared on his displays, information about hegemony military capabilities, fleet positions, strategic resources, and defensive installations that should have been impossible for any outside force to obtain. Admiral Dr. Foster's voice carried gentle amusement. "We've been accessing your database networks for 6 hours. We already have most of the information we need. We're requesting formal sharing as a matter of diplomatic courtesy." Krixthalan studied the data streams that showed the depth of human infiltration into hegemony systems. They hadn't just hacked military networks, they had integrated with everything: communication systems, transportation networks, manufacturing databases, even personal information systems on dozens of worlds. "How long have you been monitoring galactic civilization?" "Since our first deep space radio telescopes detected artificial signals from your direction, about 30 years. General Kane's tone remained conversational. "We've been listening to your public communications, studying your languages, analyzing your social structures. It's fascinating how similar all galactic species are in terms of basic social organization." "Similar? How?" Yul Korvan asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "You've all developed civilizations based on cooperation, resource sharing, and conflict avoidance. You've created stable societies by establishing rules that minimize aggression and competition. You've built a galactic order that prioritizes peace and mutual benefit." The human smile carried implications that made Krixthalan's circulatory system accelerate. "It's very civilized. And you're not civilized?" Nex Gorvan asked. "Oh, we can be. When it serves our purposes, but civilization, for humans, is a choice we make rather than a limitation we accept. We can cooperate when cooperation benefits us. We can compete when competition serves our goals. And we can fight when fighting is necessary. In which do you choose now?" "All three, Navigator." Simultaneously, the displays shifted again, showing real-time images from across human space. Manufacturing facilities producing technologies that would revolutionize galactic industry. Research installations developing weapons that could crack moons. Diplomatic centers preparing first contact protocols for dozens of species. And military commands coordinating the movement of forces that, while invisible to galactic sensors, clearly possessed capabilities that exceeded anything in hegemony arsenals. You see, the wonderful thing about being human is that we don't have to choose just one approach to galactic relations. We can be the galaxy's best trading partners, its most innovative researchers, its most reliable allies, and its most dangerous enemies. Often simultaneously, Admiral Krixthalan realized that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just first contact with a new species, but first contact with a species that intended to fundamentally alter the nature of galactic civilization. "What do you ultimately want?" he asked. "Everything," General Kane replied without hesitation. "We want to explore every star system. We want to meet every species. We want to understand every technology. We want to experience every culture. We want to participate in every aspect of galactic civilization." And then, the human's pause stretched long enough for the implications to settle over the bridge like a gravitational field. "And then we want to improve it." The transmission showed images from Earth's surface, 8 billion humans working together with purpose that transcended anything in galactic history. Cities being rebuilt according to principles that optimized both individual freedom and collective achievement. Research facilities developing technologies that would benefit every known species. Educational systems preparing the next generation for roles that didn't yet exist. Admiral Dr. Foster's voice carried the authority of someone who could observe reality from multiple dimensional perspectives simultaneously. "Your Supreme Council is requesting immediate conference. They're eager to discuss terms for humanity's integration into galactic civilization." "Terms?" Krixthalan asked. "Formalities, really. Establishing embassy facilities, creating trade protocols, setting up cultural exchange programs, arranging for human representatives to address the Galactic Senate." General Kane's tone made these sound like minor administrative details. Standard diplomatic procedures for welcoming a new species to the galactic community. And if the galactic community is not ready to welcome humanity, the question hung in the air like a challenge to the fundamental structure of reality. General Kane's smile was warm and utterly terrifying. "Ready or not, we're here. The only question is whether galactic civilization adapts to accommodate us, or whether we create new forms of civilization that better reflect human potential." The bridge displays showed the final piece of information that completed Admiral Krixthalan's understanding of humanity's position in galactic affairs. Deep space monitoring stations that had somehow escaped detection were revealing themselves across human territory. Not defensive installations, exploration platforms designed for deep space reconnaissance and first contact operations. Humanity wasn't preparing to defend their world from galactic civilization. They were preparing to join it. All of it. "Admiral," the human's voice carried the weight of species destiny. "Please inform your Supreme Council that humanity formally requests membership in the galactic hegemony. We're prepared to contribute our unique capabilities to the common good. We're eager to learn from our new neighbors, and we're excited to begin our expansion into the greater galactic community." The final word carried implications that would reshape the balance of power throughout known space. Expansion. Admiral Krixthalan looked around his bridge at officers representing 8 different species, all united under the hegemony banner, all working together toward common goals of peace, prosperity, and mutual benefit. Soon, very soon, they would have new partners in that endeavor, and the galaxy would never be the same. Outside the observation deck, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, blue and green and beautiful. Somewhere on that world's surface, 8 billion humans were looking up at the stars and seeing infinite possibility. The age of human exploration was about to begin, and the rest of the galaxy was about to discover what it meant to have neighbors who viewed the universe, not as a place to inhabit but as a place to improve. In the quantum deep, where time moved differently and possibilities became certainties, the first chapter of humanity's galactic story was ending. The second chapter would be written in starlight, across distances that had once seemed infinite, among species that would learn to see their universe through human eyes. Some would call it the Great Expansion. Others would call it the Long Peace. But the humans, with their talent for understatement and their appreciation for simple truths, would call it exactly what it was. 6 months later, the Galactic Senate convened an emergency session to address what xenopolitical analysts were calling the human question. Representatives from 47 worlds gathered to discuss integration protocols for the species that had, in the span of half a standard year, revolutionized interstellar trade, solved 7 previously intractable technological challenges, established diplomatic relations with 3 previously unknown civilizations, and submitted formal applications for membership in 42 different galactic organizations. The debate lasted 14 hours. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was formally welcomed into galactic civilization with full membership privileges and immediately appointed to the Strategic Development Council, the Interspecies Relations Committee, and the Department of Frontier Exploration. General David Kane, now serving as humanity's first galactic ambassador, addressed the Senate with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the greater good. We look forward to working with all of our neighbors to create a galaxy where every species can reach its full potential. Together we will explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations, and boldly go where no one has gone before. The applause lasted 17 minutes. It was the last time in galactic history that humanity would need to ask permission for anything.